Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day 425, May the 9th, 2017, Wednesday. And you know what Wednesday is? That is the day that I take out the trash and I have chicken. Every Wednesday I take out the trash and I have chicken. Thank you so much to all of you who are participating in the comment section. Just really the last few, it seems like particularly, it's always been good, but the last couple of weeks, man, the comment section have been really great. People are providing so many links for me, and I don't always have a chance to look at everything in the links, but I do try. But I get to a lot of it, and so I do appreciate everyone participating and helping me do what I do here, because I can't really do all this alone. I do need other people supply me with tips and information coming from other places that I may not necessarily go to every day. So thank you so much for everyone for being a participant and contributing to the community. It's fantastic to have you all here. Okay, big story. Two big stories today. The number one big story, obviously, is the Iran deal. It is dead. And with a little help from John F. Kerry, because the backstory to this is that Trump's been getting a lot of, I don't know if I'd say pressure, but he's certainly been getting a lot of calls from foreign leaders, and particularly in the last 24 hours, I understand Mattis and the Joint Chiefs were really leaning on him to try to work within the framework of the deal and improve it and try to do other things, and he was actually leaning maybe a little bit toward Mattis. Bolton was on the other side with some other people. Pompeo saying, this thing's just bad, man. Let's just gut it and forget about it and start over, or let's try to play another type of game with the Iranians. Maybe the game we played with North Korea. Maybe that'll work on the Iranians too. So apparently there was a lot going on in the last 24 hours around the Iran deal, with the president getting a lot of people from both sides. I don't know if they were applying the pressure, but certainly giving their viewpoint of why he should stay in the deal or get out of the deal. And according to some inside sources inside the White House, the thing that actually pushed Trump yesterday into making his final decision and shutting off all debate in his mind was the actions of John F. Kerry. So John F. Kerry, had he not been out there violating the Logan Act, which he should be charged and prosecuted for, had he not been out there doing that, it's possible that Mattis and the Chiefs and some other people, Macron and others, might have been able to get Trump to stay with the deal, work within the framework, and try to improve it or something like that. He was personally leaning against it, but it had a chance 24 hours ago, from what we hear. But once Trump heard about this meeting that Kerry had with the leader of Iran, apparently that's what just totally immediately said, that's it. This deal was done. So thank you, John F. Kerry. By the way, did you know John F. Kerry served in Vietnam? So there you go. Thank you very much, John F. Kerry, for helping Trump come to the final decision, and the right decision, in my opinion. The Iran deal was really nothing more, my friends, than a bribery deal. It was a bribery deal. Obama's looking at his legacy and realizes it's not very pretty. He needed something, and they put together this bribe. It's almost identical to the bribe that we gave North Korea back when Clinton was president. And and you just know these types of things are a big sham. The way this was done, if you remember, is the Congress was never consulted over the Iran deal. Certainly no Republican members in Congress were ever talked to about it. It's something that Obama did and Kerry did, started with Clinton and picked up with Kerry. They've been working on it for a while, and it was a very shady deal. We all know a lot of the things that went down there. I don't have time to go into details now, but it was a very shady deal. It was essentially a bribe. It was a bribe. And the Iranians are bad actors. Now, again, for those of you, I don't know how many of you have ever gone back and watched the very first videos I did, even before TowerGate. I did an actual entire history of the U.S. and Iran. 6 videos, 4 or 5 hours total time. I went back to the very beginning of actually even before our relationship with the Iranians, back to 1898, where it all began. And I'll be the first to admit that we made a huge mistake when the CIA went in 1953 and overthrew the government of Mohammed Mossadegh. He was a sort of a moderate Muslim. I don't even think he was even a practicing Muslim. He was a nationalist, and he came to power, and we took him out. We took him out on behalf of the British because he nationalized Iran's oil industry. And prior to that, British Petroleum, the fully British company at that time, they had essentially colonized Iran, and they were taking all those oil profits, and not only would they not share those profits fairly with the country of Iran, they would not even, when Mossadegh said, hey, just show us the numbers. Just show us the numbers. Let us at least see the numbers. If you say you're being fair to us, show us the numbers. And they would never actually show the numbers. And eventually, the groundswell was there, and Mossadegh was able to win. And he wasn't a radical Islamist. I don't even think he was a practicing Muslim. He was a nationalist, but he was probably, I think, a socialist. But he was a guy we could have worked with. And when you look at everything that happened after the 77 or whatever revolution, when Comey came in and we got rid of Mossadegh, that's when it all started. So the CIA really laid the foundation for the horrible situation we find ourselves in with Iran today. Had the CIA never pulled off that coup, Iran might have gone a completely different way. They might have been very much westernized. And the entire Middle East would be a completely different picture had we not pulled off that coup in 1953 of Mohammed Mossadegh in Iran. But that's an old history. But the fact of the matter is, in the current here and now, the Iran deal was a sham. It was a bribe. It was done in a way that those types of deals never work out, because when an administration doesn't even consult the Congress, as soon as you have a change in presidents and the new party comes into power, they overturn those deals anyway. All that real partisan stuff, it always gets overturned. And so it didn't surprise me. And the fact that Trump campaigned all throughout the campaign season, running for president, about how bad the Iran deal is, I don't really think he had much choice. Although I think Trump being Trump, he could have come out and said, okay, we don't like the deal. I said I'd get rid of the deal, but what we're going to do, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people, and I've modified my thinking on this. It's still a bad deal, but we think that we can actually make it a much better deal, and so we're going to stick with the deal and make it better. But apparently, when he saw that video clip of Kerry with Rouhani, that apparently sent him through the roof, and he said, that's it, we're out of the deal. So thank you, John F. and Kerry. Did you know that John Kerry served in Vietnam? Some of you may have heard that somewhere. Now, the dishonorable James Comey, former FBI director, still out there on his little book tour, was giving a little speech the other day, and he said that the Strzok and Page situation is really bad, incredibly painful, and that they made an appalling judgment for having an affair and exchanging anti-Trump text while working on the investigation. That's just absolutely beautiful. Yeah, they made a bad decision by the anti-Trump text and having the extramarital affair. Of course, Page is apparently living with Strzok and his wife, so that I don't even want to think about what's going on there. But yeah, so here we have Comey, leader of the small group put together to cover up the rotten Reverend Clinton investigation and other things, and of course running the deep state coup against Trump. Here he is lying his ass off every time he gets a chance, and now he's talking about how incredibly painful and how it's really bad that what Strzok and Page were doing. They were working for him. They were working for him. He was the FBI director. He was their boss. Now, Comey can only claim to be one of two things here, either terribly dishonest or terribly incompetent. Did he not know what was going on with his number 2 man at counterintelligence, his number 1 man at counterintelligence, his top FBI DOJ lawyer, and everyone else around him, his own personal FBI lawyer, Mr. Baker? Come on, Jim. Come on, Jim. You can't be that naive, that stupid. He's trying to play this card that he's just sitting there at the top of the perch at the FBI, and all this stuff's going on around him, and he doesn't know about it. He's just out there somewhere in the abyss. All these things are going on, and he's just sitting there at his desk at the FBI, not knowing about any of this, writing memos to himself about things that didn't actually happen, and that he doesn't even agree with himself on, according to his book. Jim Comey. Another thing he said is that what happened with McCabe is painful because he liked McCabe very much. Well, apparently McCabe doesn't like you very much, Jim, because he seems to have a bit of a conflict with whether or not you knew about the leaks that he was doing and the stories that he was creating to pump into the Wall Street Journal. He says you knew, Jim. At some point, I get the feeling, as this thing moves forward, that you're not going to like McCabe very much. But Comey thinks that the IG investigation is just fine, and then it will clear him of any wrongdoing. If that happens, then we'll know that the IG is on the other team. Because there ain't no way you could clear Comey. Not just with what we know, and there's a lot more there. I'll be very surprised if the IG clears Comey. I'll be very disappointed as well. And it will be time to put the IG idea into the closet and start focusing on that special counsel. Because that will be the only option left at that point. Then we have Barack Hussein Obama coming out today making his statement saying, breaking the deal with Iran could leave us in a nuclear-armed Iran or another war in the Middle East. Yeah, just like Trump's crazy tweets to Kim Jong-un was going to get us into World War III, just like all the other things he was done, pulling out of NATO or coming down hard on NATO, all the things that everybody, him and his buddies, have predicted that would lead to disaster, nuclear war, or conflict, has all been a huge lie. Actually, what was really going to cause the major problem, Mr. Obama, is if your former Secretary of State, the Right Reverend Clinton, would have won the election and set up a no-fly zone against Russia in Syria. That would have been an act of war. And she wanted to encircle China with missiles. That certainly would have worked out well, don't you think? And if you circled China with missiles, do you think they would have been willing to do what was necessary to put the pressure on North Korea? I don't think so. Trump played it right, and he's winning. And you, Mr. Obama, your entire legacy is being completely rewritten, overturned, one day at a time by President Trump. Thank God for it. Breaking the deal with Iran could leave us with a nuclear-armed... No! Allowing them to continue with the deal. They've test-fired 23 missiles since 2015. They still have a weapons program going. Now, whether or not this stuff that the Israelis dug up is a bunch of propaganda, Mossad stuff, I don't know. I don't trust the Israelis much farther than I can throw them. I know they always act in their own interest. But regardless, I don't need the Israeli Mossad or anyone else to tell me that the Iranians were going to just give up their missile program because you dropped 150 billion large on their tarmac. All they did was take that money and use it to probably promote more chaos in the Middle East and bankroll a bunch of their vacation homes and put some money in their pocket, buy some new Mercedes. That's about all they did with that money. And the fact of the matter is, Iran is not going to just voluntarily give up their nuclear program, no more than the North Koreans were. You are going to have to do exactly what you did to North Korea. You are going to have to tighten the screws down on them. And now it's the perfect move, Mr. Obama, because the people in Iran are ripe for revolution. They're ripe for revolution. Their currency is collapsing. Their economy is collapsing. And the only reason it's not completely collapsed now, and that regime hasn't been overthrown by now from within, is because you dropped 150 billion large on them. And no telling how much more. You gave them credibility on the world stage. You totally changed the equation. Now, you give Trump 2 or 3 years, And we will see, I believe, in the next 2 to 3 years, no more than 3 years, we will see an internal revolution coming out of Iran, and it will be because of policies exactly the opposite of those of Barack Hussein Obama and that whack job Secretary of State, the rotten Reverend Clinton. They're wrong every time, and even when they're proven wrong, they come up with some other excuse. They are despicable people, man. Absolutely despicable. The mayor of Jerusalem announced today that the square that's right next to the new American embassy in Jerusalem will be named after President Trump. Well done. Well done. I'm sure he'll get a lot of praise from the left-wing media and Obama for that. And the rotten reverend, I'm sure they'll be very, very happy for Trump for the success that he is having on foreign policy, which is extraordinary. I mean, he's making Bush and Clinton and Obama, he's making these people look like, he's making them look horrible. The success that he's having in just such a short time with his foreign policy strategy, which is, don't give me any crap, or I'll kick your ass. And if you don't start playing nice, we'll use everything we can do to bankrupt you and drive your economy into the tank, and change will come from within the way it should. Trump gets that. Trump knows where real change comes from. It doesn't come from regime change and foreign occupations like Iraq and Afghanistan and all the rest. No, it comes from internal. The people have to do it for themselves. It's the only way it ever sticks. History is quite clear on this point. Trump gets it. The rest of those clowns did not. Plus, there ain't much money in peace for the military-industrial complex and all their friends, some named Bush, Cheney, Pelosi, and Reid. Well, the other big story that broke today was one that put a smile on a lot of your faces. Particularly, I'm sure, on Maura's face, because Maura's got one hell of a list of swamp creatures. But today, she probably gets to add one of the biggest swamp monsters on her list. This is a heavyweight swamp monster here that was pulled out of the swamp this morning. Eric Schneiderman. And Maura can go ahead and already put his name down and already put resigned next to his name. And in a couple of months, hopefully she can put what his jail sentence is. This guy is a real dirtball. Total hardcore anti-Trumper. And the reason why it's so important that we took Schneiderman down, or they really took himself down, is because as part of the resistance movement, he was one of the chief people that the rotten Reverend Clinton enlisted in this resist movement. He, of course, was at the Pink Pussy Hat March. He is a big fan of the Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff, we know. But the thing is that as part of the resist movement, one of the big pieces of that was to have all these left-wing progressive attorney generals all across the country to file lawsuits against every single policy position or policy law that Trump put into place, whether it's sanctuary cities, gun legislation. It really doesn't matter. Anything that Trump does that's trying to do a good thing for the country, all these liberal progressive attorney generals were supposed to get together and begin filing lawsuits all across the country and tie these things up in court so that they could not happen. This was a big part of the Rotten Reverend's resist strategy. And do you know that the number one point man to coordinate with all the other attorney generals in carrying out this objective was Schneiderman? He was the tip of the spear for this particular part of the resist strategy by the rotten Reverend Clinton. So the Reverend can't be very happy tonight. Her point man just got one shoved up his rear end. And he may get a lot more things shoved up his rear end as his career moves into its next chapter, which won't be very pretty. Now, this guy is a real dirtball, and what's incredible about this is that Trump predicted this back in 2013. He actually stated that Schneiderman was worse than Wiener and Spitzer. So now we learn that this guy is into some serious sick stuff. Apparently, he was into like beating women, slapping them, threatening their lives, if they told on him, all these sorts of things. And then he comes out with a statement and says that this whole slave master thing that he was into was all just role playing. Well, even if it was just role playing, that's some pretty sick stuff, man. This whole slave master thing, that gets into some like S&M stuff. And look, I'm a libertarian on these issues. What you and your wife or girlfriend, what little games you choose to play, and in the bedroom, it's all good, man. I'm good with that, But there's some things that get into, I don't know. There's some things I think cross the line. And when you start getting into this like slave master stuff and slapping and beating, I mean, if I slapped my girlfriend, she'd turn around and slap me back twice as hard. I would never consider such a thing. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't work out for me very well, but nor would I ever try it. But these slapping and death threats and things and such, he's in a lot of trouble because there's some very good. There's 2 that have gone public, 3 that have not gone public, but a couple of them say they actually had to go to like the hospital, and a couple others took selfies of the huge red marks he left on their face and around their neck where he was choking them. And I mean, this guy's a real piece of work, and he is done. And I got to tell you, Mario the Pious, his boss, the Gov there in New York, had to know what a freak this dude is, and I wouldn't doubt what old Mario isn't into some stuff himself. These are some very freaky, messed up people, and we know it. We already know that. Man, you talk about draining the swamp. It's unbelievable what we've been seeing. I love this chaos. It's just total chaos, and I love it because it's good chaos. And we just need to get Mueller pulled up out of the swamp. Once we get Mueller's ass up on the beach and cut him up and fillet him up on the beach, things are really going to get improve. But he's a big swamp monster we have to deal with. But I'll tell you what, it was great to see Schneiderman pulled out of the swamp this morning. Excellent, very, very well done, and it will have a big impact on a lot of things. Very well done. Next question is, will Pocahontas and Kamala Harris return the money they got from fundraising with this perv? We'll wait and see. This is also another great story. We have Joe Manchin and Heidi Heitkamp. Joe Manchin, of course, from West Virginia, and Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota. 2 states where they do a lot of coal, and 2 states where both of these 2 are in big trouble because of the Rotten Reverend. Because she went into coal country and said she was going to shut down coal country and shut down their jobs. So now these two get a load of this. These 2 are now pushing for a bill to protect coal production in their states and other coal producing states. What about that blue wave? There ain't going to be much of a blue wave if the Democrats in the heartland are forced to adopt Republican proposals and policies in order to try to hold on to their seats. Do you think that Heitkamp and Manchin will be asking the Rotten Reverend to come into coal country and give a few speeches? I don't think so, but something tells me there'll be commercials on TV in those states with the Rotten Reverend Clinton standing side by side with Heitkamp and Manchin, talking about destroying coal country, destroying jobs and lives in middle America. That's what they really stand for. Do you think people are going to buy it? I have some cousins that live in West Virginia. Big Stone Gap. Beautiful place. They're not suckers. I don't think they're going to buy it. And I don't even know what their political affiliation is. Louis Gohmert released a 48-page report today outlining Mueller's dirty, dirty past. Fantastic work on Louis Gohmert's part. Yeah, I mean, Mueller's past is a dirty past, and everyone needs to know about it. And they need to call his butt in to Congress and grill him on C-SPAN for everybody to see. Let him explain the things that he's done and the things that he's doing now, which are, in my mind, very, very close to criminal. Oh, speak of the devil. Uncle Bob, the executioner, is now questioning Viktor Vekselberg, who's a Russian oligarch chairman of a big pharma company, actually 2 big pharma companies, about payments he made to Michael Cohen. which has nothing to do with Russians hacking the DNC or anything else. He donated to Trump's inaugural campaign, but he is a U.S. citizen. He is perfectly legal. If in fact an American who's got a Russian name is a big problem for Uncle Bob, why doesn't he go interview Mika Brzezinski and talk about Mika's papa and who he knows and who he runs around with? George Soros and others. Maybe Uncle Bob is going to pick up the national white pages and look for anybody with a Russian name and have Andrew Weissman and the Hillary donor posse go through all the white pages and find anyone with a Russian name and find out if they can see if they ever had any connection to Trump or anyone who knows Trump. This man's an American citizen. He operates a couple big pharma companies. He's got the money to fight Mueller if he wants. But this guy's a busy man. He doesn't have time for this crap. More of the witch hunt and another reason why Uncle Bob needs to be shut down. And we need to see that scope memo. And according to Mark Meadows, he says that by Friday, if Sessions and the DOJ do not come off that scope memo and the other documents they've requested, they are going to vote for contempt of court. And that will be followed by an impeachment vote. And he says they're serious. And keep in mind, Judge Ellis also wants to see that scope memo. For whatever reason, they don't want, the DOJ does not want this judge or the Congress to see that scope memo, which tells us what Mueller, what his original mandate was, his original instructions were. It's a critically important document, and my guess is they are going to have to turn that over. And when this is all over, Uncle Bob better lawyer up, because he is going to be a target, I can assure you of that. Because there's an old saying, when you go after the king, you better get him. If you go for the king and you miss, usually it doesn't go very well for you. And I can assure you that when this thing is over, Trump is not going to forget. And Mueller has a lot of dirt in his past, and I imagine that Trump is probably taking a look at Louis Gohmert's report, that 48-page report, and Trump's probably thinking the same thing. You know, when this Russia probe is done, we're going to have a look at Uncle Bob. Let's destroy his life. Destroy him financially. See how he likes it. Along with his Hillary donor posse. And you know, and when you watch these things that are happening, they do not want to come off the documents. They do not want to come clean. This is all we all want. It's just come clean. We already know what happened. We know they tried to pull off a deep state coup. In fact, we know it's still going on. They tried to run a frame-up operation against Trump. And at the same time, they got to cover up the fact that they covered up Hillary's fixed so-called investigation. It really wasn't an investigation. And the reason that they give probably is, well, we can't let the American people really know how really bad we really are, because they would be shocked to learn about the horrible things that went on at the DOJ and FBI, trying to take down a president, fixing an election, all these sorts of things. But the fact of the matter is, Americans will not be shocked by the crimes committed by the deep state dwellers. We will not be shocked at all. We're perfectly prepared. We already know what happened. We're just waiting for you folks in Washington to admit it or get caught and charged through investigation. But you should just come out and come clean. Sessions and Rodenstein and Wray, just come out. Dump it all. Congress has the right to see it. Let's see it. The American people will not be shocked by what you did. We're pretty sure we know what you did on November 22nd, 1963, when you splattered the president's brains all over Dealey Plaza. We all watched those 3 towers come down. 2 planes, 3 towers. That's a pretty good day, even for a terrorist who couldn't fly a Cessna. We're not going to be shocked by the crimes that you committed. What we will be shocked by is if you're ever held accountable. Good news, the federal judge has ruled in favor of James O'Keefe. Right after James O'Keefe came out with his he gave about a 20-second video, a sample, and then he went on Sean Hannity, and the next thing you know, boom, court injunction to stop him from releasing his tape, filed by the teachers union. But today the judge has heard the case, and he has ruled in favor of James O'Keefe. The teachers union loses bigly, and my friends, heads are going to roll. Because just from the little clip I saw and what I heard O'Keefe telling Hannity, if he's got video evidence of what he says he's got, heads are going to roll, and the teachers union and a lot of people there are going to lose bigly. Bigly. Congratulations, James O'Keefe. Another job well done. Project Veritas. God bless him. Doing the Lord's work. California. Republican candidate for Congress, Ron Basilian, has discovered that the U.S. Center for Disease Control was diverting taxpayer dollars, at least $3 million in this case, to a local liberal group that funded far-left campaigns. The money was used to pay kids to go speak at anti-NRA and anti-GOP functions. This essentially was the entire Obama plan for 8 years, funneling government taxpayer money to fund left-wing organizations. That's what Obama did. I mean, that was his specialty. I think other people did all the other criminal stuff he was involved in, but the number one thing that Obama was the expert at was diverting government taxpayer money into organizations and groups that were progressive. He used taxpayer money to promote his progressive Marxist left-wing agenda. You keep digging, Mr. Basilian, you will find thousands and thousands more of examples of the Obama administration finding ways that are very, very, if not illegal, close to being illegal, finding ways to divert taxpayer money into left-wing programs and organizations. It's a hallmark of the Barack Hussein Obama administration and his disastrous legacy, which is being destroyed right now by Trump, thank God. Well done, Mr. Basilian. Yes, there is a Republican out there in California. A couple of them. Meghan McCain is asking people to lay off her dad while he sits home drawing his salary as a senator, writing his hateful memoirs, a book of lies and distortions, on our dime. We are supposed to just sit there and let him do it. No. And I want a full confession from Senator Magoo on his role in the deep state coup. I want to know everything you did, Senator Magoo. It's all going to come out. So Meghan McCain, I'm sorry. I know it's your father. I can appreciate that. But if he doesn't want to take the abuse that he's taking, maybe he should shut the hell up. Maybe he shouldn't have participated in a coup. We're going to learn in his book that his hero never was Reagan, that his hero was Ted Kennedy. Teddy Kennedy, Chappaquiddick Ted, one confirmed kill on the bridge. Well, we voted today, and I did end up voting for DeWine. I kind of held my nose and voted for DeWine. No big surprise, he did win. DeWine won. He's going to be the governor of Ohio if he beats the Democrat. Now, what was a big surprise is that the Democrat that won was Richard Cordray. And that tells you a lot. Because the other guy, whose name I don't even like to mention, is very, very closely associated with the rotten Reverend Clinton. And that gives us a sign that maybe people who are associated with the rotten Reverend Clinton are not going to be very appealing to a lot of Democrats in the upcoming elections. That's what this showed us today, because Cordray wasn't really a favorite there. DeWine was, but Cordray wasn't. Very surprising. And in my local, for my congressman who actually is Warren Davidson here in the 8th District, he replaced John Boehner when he was forced out as Speaker of the House. And Warren Davidson, I don't like him that much. He's an Iraq war vet, but you don't hear much about him. He's just kind of quiet. He doesn't do very much. I've never heard him join the Freedom Caucus. I've never heard him out there supporting Trump, anything like that. But he ran completely unopposed. There was no one else even on the ballot. Damn, I should have filled out the paperwork and got my name on the ballot. Maybe I'll do that in 2 years. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. You guys have a good night. Be safe. Bye.